I should have known something was wrong the moment I walked into that hospital room and saw my brother Evan holding my pregnant wife's hand like he was the one who put that baby in her belly. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting that sickly green glow that made everyone look like they were already gone. Rachel was propped up in the hospital bed, her blonde hair cascading over her shoulders, laughing at something Evan had whispered in her ear. When she saw me standing in the doorway still wearing my paramedic uniform, her face went pale. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. "Adam," she said, yanking her hand away from Evan's grip. "You're early." "Yeah. Well, turns out saving lives doesn't take as long as some people think," I said, setting my medical bag down with more force than necessary. The metal instruments inside clanked together like broken bones. Evan stood up from the chair he'd pulled close to Rachel's bedside. Too close. My younger brother had always been the golden child, the one with the perfect smile, the musician's hands, the charm that made our parents forget they had another son. At 30, he still looked like he belonged on a magazine cover, all sharp jawlines and carefully tousled brown hair. "Hey, brother," he said, flashing that $1,000,000 grin. "I was just keeping Rachel company. You know how boring these checkups can be." I looked at my wife, 7 months pregnant with what was supposed to be our first child together. Her green eyes wouldn't meet mine. Instead, she was fiddling with her wedding ring, twisting it around her finger like she was trying to unscrew it. "How thoughtful of you," I said. "Most uncles don't show up to prenatal appointments." The word uncle hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. Evan's smile faltered for just a second, so quick you'd miss it if you weren't looking for it. But I was looking. I'd been looking for weeks now, ever since I started noticing the little things. The way Rachel's phone was always face down, the way she'd started working late shifts that didn't exist on the hospital schedule, the way my brother had suddenly developed an interest in baby names. "Well," Evan said, grabbing his leather jacket from the back of the chair, "I should probably head out. Band practice tonight." "Right," I said. "Band practice, on a Tuesday, at 11 p.m. Music doesn't keep normal hours, you know that." He leaned down and kissed Rachel's forehead. His lips lingered there a beat too long. "Take care of yourself, okay? Both of you." After he left, the room felt smaller somehow. Rachel was staring at the ultrasound printout in her hands. The black and white image of what the doctor had told us was a healthy baby boy. "He's excited about being an uncle," she said, without looking up. "Yeah," I said, sitting down in the chair that was still warm from my brother's body. "Real excited." That night, I couldn't sleep. Rachel was lying next to me, her breathing deep and even, one hand resting on her rounded belly. In the darkness, I could hear the house settling around us, the old colonial we'd bought 3 years ago when we still believed in forever. The mortgage payments that kept me working double shifts while Rachel climbed the ladder at Minneapolis General. I slipped out of bed and went downstairs to the kitchen. Through the window, I could see the light still on in the Hendersons' house next door. Margaret Henderson was probably up watching her late-night talk shows, the ones where celebrities came on to confess their sins and beg for forgiveness. I opened Rachel's laptop on the kitchen table. She'd left it open to her work email, something about a staff meeting next week. But it was synced to her phone, and when I clicked on the Messages app, I felt my world tilt sideways. The thread with Evan went back months. At first, it was innocent enough. Family dinner plans, birthday gift ideas. But as I scrolled down, the messages got more personal, more intimate. "Can't stop thinking about last night. When Adam's at work tomorrow, come over. The baby kicked today. Wish you could have felt it." My hands were shaking as I screenshotted every message. The timestamps showed they'd been meeting up during my shifts, when I was out there trying to save other people's lives while my own was being destroyed from the inside. The last message was from earlier that day. "Think he suspects something?" Evan's response. Adam's too stupid to figure it out. Always has been. I closed the laptop and sat there in the dark kitchen, listening to the refrigerator hum and the red liquid rushing in my ears. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance, probably one of my colleagues racing to save someone who still had something worth saving. That's when I started planning. The next morning, I made breakfast like nothing had changed. Scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice. Rachel came downstairs in her scrubs, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked beautiful and guilty and completely oblivious to the fact that her whole world was about to come crashing down. "You're up early," she said, kissing my cheek. Her lips felt cold. "Couldn't sleep," I said, handing her a plate. "Must be excited about the baby." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Yeah, me too." I watched her eat, memorizing every detail. The way she chewed slowly, like she was thinking about something else. The way she kept checking her phone. The way she avoided looking directly at me. "Evan seemed really interested in the ultrasound yesterday," I said casually. Her fork paused halfway to her mouth. "He's just being a good uncle." "Right, good uncle." I poured myself another cup of coffee. "You know, I've been thinking, maybe we should do one of those paternity tests, just to be sure everything's okay with the baby's development." The fork clattered against her plate. "What? Why would we need to do that?" "Oh, medical reasons. My family has a history of genetic issues. Just want to make sure our son is healthy." She was staring at me now, her green eyes wide with something that looked a lot like panic. "Adam, that's not necessary. The doctor said everything looks fine." "I know, but I'd feel better knowing for sure. Wouldn't you?" She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the kitchen floor. "I'm going to be late for work." After she left, I called in sick to the ambulance service. First time in 3 years. Then I drove to the office supply store and bought a small recording device. The kind private investigators use. The kind that would fit inside a pen or a picture frame. I spent the morning at Amelia's boxing gym downtown. Amelia Rodriguez. Damn, I can't use that name. Amelia Thompson had been my partner back when I was still trying to make it as a professional boxer, before I realized that getting punched in the face for a living wasn't going to pay the bills. Now she ran a gym in the warehouse district, training kids from the neighborhood and guys like me who needed to hit something. "You look like hell," she said when I walked in. Amelia was 45, built like a brick wall with graying hair and hands that could crack walnuts. She'd never married, never had kids, but she'd saved more lives in this gym than I had in the back of an ambulance. "Feel like it too?" I said, wrapping my hands. "Want to talk about it?" "Want to hit something first." She held the heavy bag while I worked out my frustrations. Each punch was a message I wanted to send to my brother's face. Each combination was a conversation I was planning to have with my wife. "Rachel cheating?" Amelia asked after I'd been pounding the bag for 20 minutes. I stopped mid-punch. "How'd you know?" "Same look my ex-husband had when he found out about me and his brother." "Jesus, Amelia." She shrugged. "Different time, different story, but the look's the same. What are you going to do about it?" "I don't know yet." "Well, whatever you do, don't do anything stupid. Prison orange isn't your color." That afternoon, I followed Evan. He lived in a converted warehouse loft in the arts district, the kind of place that looked cool in movies, but was probably freezing in the winter. I parked across the street and waited. At 3:30, Rachel's car pulled up. I watched my pregnant wife get out of her Honda and look around nervously before hurrying to the building's entrance. She had a key. Of course she had a key. They were up there for 2 hours. 2 hours while I sat in my truck, taking pictures with my phone and trying not to think about what they were doing. When Rachel finally came out, her hair was messed up and her scrubs were wrinkled. She looked guilty and satisfied and completely unaware that her husband was watching from across the street. That night, I planted the recording device in our bedroom, hidden inside the digital clock on Rachel's nightstand. If they were going to talk about their plans, I wanted to hear every word. I didn't have to wait long. "He's getting suspicious," Rachel said after she thought I was asleep. I kept my breathing steady, my eyes closed. "What makes you think that?" Evan's voice was barely a whisper. "He mentioned a paternity test today, said it was for medical reasons, but I could tell he was fishing." "So what if he is? There's nothing he can do about it now. You're 7 months pregnant." "Evan, if he finds out the baby is yours," "He won't. And even if he does, what's the worst that could happen? A divorce? You'll get half of everything, plus child support. It's not about the money, isn't it? Come on, Rachel. You married a paramedic. I'm about to sign a record deal. Which life do you want for our son?" Our son. The words hit me like a punch to the solar plexus. "I just wish things were different," Rachel said. "They will be. After the baby's born, we'll figure it out. Maybe Adam will have an accident at work. Those ambulances can be dangerous. I had to bite my tongue to keep from jumping up and strangling them both right there. Instead, I lay perfectly still and recorded every word. The next morning, I made my first move. I started small, subtle, the kind of revenge that builds slowly, like a cancer. First, I called Rachel's supervisor at the hospital. Anonymous tip about falsified overtime records. Nothing that would get her arrested, just enough to make her life difficult. An investigation that would take weeks, during which she'd be under scrutiny. Then I visited Evan's favorite coffee shop, the pretentious place in Uptown where all the wannabe musicians hung out. I struck up a conversation with the owner, a middle-aged woman named Janet, who'd been divorced twice. "You know that guy Evan who comes in here?" I said, stirring sugar into my coffee. "Tall brown hair, thinks he's the next John Mayer?" "Oh yeah, I know Evan. Nice enough guy. Why?" "Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I thought you should know he's been bragging about sleeping with married women, pregnant married women, specifically." Janet's face darkened. Her second divorce had been because her husband cheated on her while she was pregnant with their daughter. "Is that so?" "Yeah, real piece of work, that one. Anyway, I just thought you should know, in case he tries to hit on any of your other customers." Word travels fast in small communities. By the end of the week, Evan's welcome at half the venues in Minneapolis had worn thin. His band's upcoming gigs started getting canceled. Nothing traceable back to me, just whispered conversations and raised eyebrows. Meanwhile, I was gathering evidence, phone records, credit card statements, hotel receipts. I hired a private investigator, a guy named Mike Santos, who'd been a cop before he got tired of the politics. He was expensive, but he was thorough. "Your wife and your brother have been meeting at the Lakeside Motel every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 4 months, he told me, sliding a manila folder across the table at the diner where we'd met. "Always room 237, always paid for in cash by your brother." The photos were grainy, but clear enough. Rachel going into the motel room, Evan following 5 minutes later, both of them leaving together 2 hours later, looking satisfied and guilty. "There's something else," Mike said. "Your wife's been in contact with a lawyer, divorce attorney, preliminary consultation 3 weeks ago." So they were planning to leave me. After the baby was born, they'd probably wait a respectable amount of time. Then Rachel would file for divorce and run off with my brother and my son. They'd live happily ever after while I paid child support for a kid that wasn't even mine, not if I had anything to say about it. That weekend was our monthly family dinner at my parents' house. The whole clan would be there. Mom, Dad, my sister Jennifer, her husband Tom, their kids, and of course Evan and Rachel. I spent the morning preparing my surprise. "Adam!" Mom said when we walked in, but her eyes immediately went to Rachel's belly. "Oh, sweetheart, you're glowing. How are you feeling?" "Good," Rachel said, letting Mom fuss over her. "Tired, but good." Evan was already there, holding court in the living room with Dad and Tom. He was telling some story about his band, probably made up, while they hung on every word. The golden child, as always. "Hey, brother," he said when he saw me. That same $1,000,000 smile, like he hadn't been screwing my wife behind my back for months. "Evan," I said, shaking his hand. I squeezed just a little too hard, watched his smile falter. Dinner was the usual affair. Mom had made her famous pot roast, the one that took her all day to prepare. We sat around the big oak table that Dad had built when Jennifer and I were kids, making small talk about work and weather and everything, except the elephant in the room. "So when's the due date again?" Jennifer asked, cutting her meat. "March 15th, Rachel said. 2 more months. "Are you excited, Uncle Evan?" Jennifer's husband Tom asked. Evan's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "Very excited. Can't wait to meet my nephew." "It's funny," I said, setting down my water glass. "The baby's due exactly 9 months after that weekend Rachel went to that medical conference in Chicago. Remember that, honey? The one where you said you learned so much?" The table went quiet. Rachel was staring at her plate, her face flushed. "The one where you roomed with your colleague Sarah," I continued. "Except Sarah told me last week that she'd never heard of any medical conference in Chicago." "Adam," Rachel said quietly. "Not here." "Oh, I think here is perfect. Family dinner, family business." I looked around the table at the confused faces of my parents and sister. "See, I've been doing some investigating lately. Turns out my wife has been very busy during my work shifts." "What are you talking about?" Dad asked. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo gallery. "I'm talking about the Lakeside Motel, room 237, every Tuesday and Thursday for 4 months. I slid the phone across the table to my father. His face went white as he looked at the pictures. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. Mom grabbed the phone from him, looked at the photos, then at Rachel, then at Evan. "Oh my God." "The best part," I said, standing up, "is that they've been planning this whole thing, the divorce, taking my son, starting their new life together. Real touching love story, isn't it?" Evan finally found his voice. "Adam, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly." I walked around the table until I was standing behind his chair. "I understand that my brother is a lying, cheating piece of shit who's been screwing my pregnant wife." "It's not like that," Rachel said, tears streaming down her face. "Then what's it like, Rachel? Explain it to me. Explain it to our family." She couldn't. She just sat there crying while my mother stared at her in disgust, and my father looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. "You know what the really funny part is?" I said, putting my hands on Evan's shoulders. He tensed under my grip. "I always knew you were jealous of me. Always knew you resented that I found someone who loved me. But I never thought you'd stoop this low." "Adam, please," Evan said. "Please what? Please don't tell everyone what a scumbag you are. Please don't ruin your reputation." I squeezed his shoulders harder. "Too late for that, brother." I let go of him and walked to the door. "Enjoy your family dinner. I'm sure you all have a lot to discuss." As I drove away, I could see them through the dining room window, still sitting around that oak table like they were posing for a picture. The perfect family, frozen in their perfect moment of shock and shame. But I wasn't done, not even close. The fallout from the family dinner was swift and brutal. My phone rang constantly for the next 3 days. Mom crying, Dad demanding explanations, Jennifer trying to play peacemaker. I let them all go to voicemail. Rachel moved in with her sister temporarily, claiming she needed space to think. Evan disappeared entirely, probably holed up in his loft, trying to figure out how to salvage his reputation. But I wasn't interested in giving anyone time to regroup. I'd learned in the boxing ring that when you have your opponent on the ropes, you don't let up. You keep punching until they can't get back up. My next target was their support system. The friends who'd been enabling their affair, either actively or through willful blindness. I started with Lisa Chen. Damn, can't use that name either. Lisa Williams, Rachel's best friend from nursing school. They'd been close since college, the kind of friendship that involved shared secrets and mutual alibis. If anyone knew about the affair, it was Lisa. I found her at the Starbucks near the hospital grading papers. Lisa was a part-time nursing instructor, married to a software engineer. No kids. She looked up when I sat down across from her, and I could see the guilt written all over her face. "Adam," she said, closing her laptop. "I was wondering when you'd track me down." "Were you now?" I signaled the barista for a coffee. "That's interesting. What made you think I'd want to talk to you?" "Come on, we both know why you're here." "Do we? Why don't you tell me what you think I know, Lisa?" She fidgeted with her wedding ring, the same nervous habit Rachel had. "Look, I never wanted to get involved. Rachel swore me to secrecy. I told her she was making a mistake, but she wouldn't listen." "So you knew about her and Evan." "I knew she was unhappy. I knew she felt trapped. But I never encouraged her to cheat. Just helped her cover it up." Lisa's face flushed. "I provided her with someone to talk to. That's what friends do. Friends also tell their friends when they're about to destroy their lives. But you didn't do that, did you?" "It wasn't my place." I leaned forward. "It became your place the moment you started lying for her. All those times you told me Rachel was with you when she was really with my brother. All those fake girls' nights and shopping trips. Adam, I'm sorry, I really am. But Rachel's my friend and I'm nothing to you. I get it." I stood up. "Well, Lisa, I hope your friendship with Rachel was worth it. Because after today, you're going to find out exactly how much loyalty is worth." I left her sitting there, looking confused and worried. She'd figure it out soon enough. My next stop was the hospital. I had friends there too, paramedics, nurses, doctors who'd worked with me for years, people who respected me, who trusted my judgment. Time to cash in some of that goodwill. "Hey, Adam," called out Dr. Martinez as I walked through the ER. "Heard about you and Rachel. Sorry, man." Word was already spreading. "Good. Thanks, Doc. Actually, I wanted to ask you something. You know Lisa Williams, the nursing instructor?" "Sure. What about her? Has she ever mentioned anything to you about falsifying patient records? Maybe helping students cheat on exams?" Dr. Martinez frowned. "No, why?" "Oh, probably nothing. I just heard some rumors. You know how it is." But I'd planted the seed. In a profession where reputation was everything, even unfounded rumors could be devastating. I made similar stops throughout the hospital, asking carefully worded questions, expressing concern about Lisa's recent behavior, wondering if she might be having personal problems that were affecting her work. By the end of the week, Lisa was being investigated by the nursing board. Nothing criminal, just a professional review that would put her career under a microscope. The kind of stress that could destroy a marriage, especially when her husband started asking why his wife was suddenly the subject of workplace gossip. But Lisa was just the opening act. The real show was about to begin. I'd been tracking Evan's movements for weeks, learning his patterns. He had a gig coming up at a club downtown, his first since the family dinner disaster. A chance to rebuild his reputation, to show the world that he was still the golden boy. I wasn't going to let that happen. The night of the show, I arrived early and found the club owner, a guy named Pete who'd been in the music business for 20 years. Pete had seen it all: drugs, groupies, ego trips, band breakups. But he was also a family man with 3 daughters. "Pete," I said, buying him a beer at the bar, "I need to tell you something about Evan Thompson, the guy who's playing tonight." "What about him?" "He's been bragging around town about sleeping with pregnant women, married pregnant women. Says it's his specialty." Pete's face hardened. "Is that right?" "Yeah, real piece of work. I just thought you should know, in case any of your female customers complain about him hitting on them. Thanks for the heads up." When Evan took the stage an hour later, he looked confident. Cocky, even. He'd probably convinced himself that he could charm his way out of this mess, that people would forget about the scandal once they heard him play. He was wrong. Halfway through his first song, Pete cut the sound. The club went silent as Evan stood there on stage, confused, his mouth moving, but no words coming out. "Sorry, folks," Pete announced over the PA system. "We're having some technical difficulties. Show's over." The crowd booed and demanded refunds. Evan tried to argue with Pete, but the club owner just shook his head and pointed toward the exit. I watched from the back of the room as my brother packed up his guitar, his face red with embarrassment and rage. When he looked up and saw me standing there, his expression shifted to something darker. He pushed through the crowd until he was standing in front of me. "You snake," he said. "Hello, brother. How'd the show go?" "You did this. You sabotaged me." "I didn't do anything. I just told people the truth about what kind of man you are." "The truth?" Evan laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about truth? The truth is that Rachel never loved you. She settled for you because she thought you were safe. But she's been miserable for years. Miserable enough to cheat with my brother? Miserable enough to find someone who actually makes her happy." I felt my hands clench into fists. "And the baby? Is that part of making her happy too?" Evan's smile was cruel. "The baby's mine, Adam, my son, and there's nothing you can do about it. We'll see about that." He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the beer on his breath. "You can destroy my career, turn our family against me, ruin my reputation. But at the end of the day, I'm still the one who won. I got your wife, I got your son, and I got the satisfaction of knowing that you'll never be half the man I am." That's when I hit him. It wasn't a planned thing. It wasn't strategic or calculated. It was pure instinct, muscle memory from all those years in the boxing ring. My right hand connected with his jaw and sent him stumbling backward into a table full of empty beer bottles. The crash brought security running. 2 bouncers grabbed me while a third helped Evan to his feet. Red liquid was running from his split lip, and his left eye was already starting to swell. "Call the cops," he said, pointing at me. "I want to press charges." But Pete shook his head. "No cops. Both of you. Get out of my club. Now." They escorted us to the parking lot separately. Evan was still threatening to call the police, but we both knew he wouldn't. The last thing he needed was more public attention. As I drove home, I realized that hitting him had been a mistake. Not because I felt guilty. Evan had deserved that punch and a lot more. But because it meant I was letting my emotions control my actions, and that was dangerous. If I was going to destroy them completely, I needed to be smarter, more patient. I needed to think like a predator, not prey. The pregnancy was getting harder on Rachel. I could see it in the way she moved when she thought no one was watching, one hand pressed to her lower back, her face tight with discomfort. She was staying at her sister's house. But we still had to interact. Doctor's appointments, legal consultations, the messy business of untangling a marriage. I played the part of the wounded husband perfectly, hurt but not vindictive, disappointed but willing to be civil for the sake of the baby. It was a performance that fooled everyone, including Rachel. "I want you to know," she said after one particularly tense meeting with our lawyers, "I never meant for things to happen this way." We were sitting in my truck in the parking garage, the February wind howling through the concrete structure. Rachel looked exhausted, her face pale and drawn. "How did you mean for them to happen?" I asked. "I don't know. I was lonely, Adam. You were always working, always tired when you came home. Evan made me feel special. Special enough to betray our marriage. I know you hate me. I know I've destroyed everything. But I need you to understand that I never wanted to hurt you." I looked at her sitting there, 8 months pregnant with another man's child, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger anymore. Something worse. "I don't hate you, Rachel," I said. "I pity you." Her face crumpled. "Adam, please. Can't we try to work this out? For the baby? The baby isn't mine. You don't know that for sure." I pulled out my phone and showed her the DNA test results. I'd managed to get samples from both her and Evan. A few strands of hair from Rachel's brush, saliva from a beer bottle Evan had left at the club. The test was 99.7% conclusive. Evan Thompson is the biological father, I said, reading from the report. Probability of paternity, 99.7%. Rachel stared at the screen, tears streaming down her face. When did you? Does it matter? The point is, I know the truth. We all know the truth. What are you going to do? What do you think I'm going to do, Rachel? I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of people you and my brother are. She was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. Please, Adam, think about the baby. He's innocent in all this. You should have thought about that before you spread your legs for my brother. The words were cruel, designed to hurt. They did their job. Rachel flinched like I'd slapped her. I deserve that, she whispered. I deserve all of this. But please don't take it out on the baby. I'm not taking anything out on anyone. I'm just making sure the truth comes to light. That weekend, I put my plan into motion. I'd been preparing for weeks, gathering information, making contacts, setting up the dominoes. Now it was time to watch them fall. I started with social media, a carefully crafted Facebook post that went live Saturday morning. It's with a heavy heart that I have to share some difficult news with my friends and family. After months of suspicion and investigation, I've discovered that my wife, Rachel, has been having an affair with my brother, Evan. The child she's carrying is not mine. I'm sharing this not out of spite, but because I believe people deserve to know the truth about those they trust. I'll be taking some time away to process this betrayal, but I wanted you all to hear it from me first. I tagged both Rachel and Evan in the post, along with about 50 mutual friends and family members. Then I shared it to every local Facebook group I belong to, the neighborhood association, my high school alumni page, the paramedics union group. Within an hour, the post had been shared dozens of times. The comment section was a battlefield of shock, support, and condemnation. People were taking sides, demanding explanations, expressing their outrage at the betrayal. Rachel called me, hysterical. Adam, please take it down, please. My parents saw it, my co-workers, everyone's calling me. Good, I said. Maybe now you'll understand what consequences feel like. This isn't fair. You're destroying my reputation. You destroyed your own reputation when you decided to cheat on your husband with his brother. What about Evan? He's getting serious threats on Facebook. Then maybe he should have thought about that before he decided to screw his brother's wife. I hung up on her and immediately got a call from Evan. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to his message. You sick bastard. You think this is some kind of game? You're hurting Rachel, you're hurting the baby. If you don't take down that post, I swear to God, I'll make you regret it. I saved the voicemail. Evidence of harassment in case I needed it later. The social media storm was just the beginning. I'd also sent copies of all my evidence, photos, text messages, DNA results, to the local newspaper's gossip columnist, a woman named Sarah Mitchell, who specialized in exposing the dirty secrets of Minneapolis's social scene. The story ran in Tuesday's edition. Local paramedic discovers wife's affair with brother-in-law. It was a small item buried on page 6, but it was enough to ensure that anyone who'd missed the Facebook drama would be brought up to speed. By Wednesday, Rachel had been placed on administrative leave from the hospital. Not because of the affair, that was personal business, but because the stress was affecting her work performance and she was considered a liability in her condition. Evan's band officially broke up that same day. His bandmates released a statement distancing themselves from the personal drama and announcing they were forming a new group without him. Lisa Williams, Rachel's best friend, was still under investigation by the nursing board. The stress had triggered panic attacks that required medical attention. Her husband had moved out temporarily, claiming he needed space to think about whether he could trust his wife. I was destroying them systematically, methodically, and it felt better than any drug I'd ever tried. But I wasn't finished yet. The best was still to come. The baby was born on March 12th, 3 days early. I got the call from Rachel's sister at 2 in the morning. Adam, it's Jennifer. Rachel's in labor. She's asking for you. I almost laughed. After everything that had happened, she still wanted me there for the birth of another man's child. Tell her I'm working, I said. Adam, please, whatever's happened between you two, this is about the baby now. The baby that isn't mine. You don't know that for sure. Actually, I do. I'd sent Jennifer a copy of the DNA test results the week before. Check your email. I hung up and went back to sleep. The next morning, I drove to the hospital, not to see Rachel or the baby, but to set the final phase of my plan in motion. I found Evan in the maternity ward waiting room, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His face was unshaven, his clothes wrinkled, his hair a mess. When he saw me, he stood up like he was ready for a fight. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "Visiting my wife," I said. "Or should I say, my soon-to-be ex-wife. She doesn't want to see you." "I'm sure she doesn't. How's your son?" Evan's face softened despite himself. "He's perfect. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. Looks just like you, like family. Congratulations, Daddy. I hope you're ready for 18 years of child support payments." His expression hardened again. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means Rachel's going to need financial support, and since you're the father, that responsibility falls to you. Hope that record deal comes through because diapers are expensive. We'll figure it out. I'm sure you will, just like you figured out how to betray your own brother." Evan stepped closer, his hands clenched into fists. "You want to know the truth, Adam? The real truth? I'm glad it happened. Rachel deserves better than you. She deserves someone who actually pays attention to her, someone who makes her feel beautiful and wanted." "Someone like you?" "Yes, someone like me. And you know what? The baby's better off too. He'll grow up with a father who actually wants him, instead of some bitter asshole who's more interested in playing the victim than taking care of his family." That's when I smiled. The first genuine smile I'd felt in months. "You're right, Evan. The baby is better off, and so am I." I pulled out an envelope and handed it to him. "Congratulations on your new responsibilities." He opened it and found the custody papers I'd had drawn up, legal documents formally relinquishing all parental rights to the child, along with a statement acknowledging that I was not the biological father. "What is this?" "It's me giving you exactly what you wanted. Full custody, full responsibility, full financial obligation. No interference from me." Evan's face went white as he read through the documents. "You can't just abandon a child." "It's not my child. You made that very clear. The DNA test makes it very clear. These papers make it very clear." "But Rachel, she can't raise a baby alone. She doesn't have a job anymore." "Then I guess you'd better figure out how to support your new family." "Adam, wait. Maybe we can work something out. Some kind of arrangement." "The only arrangement I'm interested in is never seeing either of you again." I left him standing there in the waiting room, holding the papers that would change his life forever. As I walked toward the elevator, I could hear him calling my name, but I didn't turn around. 3 months later, I was living in a new apartment across town, working a new route, building a new life. The divorce had been finalized with minimal drama. Rachel got the house, but she also got the mortgage payments. She'd tried to find work at other hospitals, but my social media campaign had followed her. Word traveled fast in the medical community. Evan had been forced to take a job at a music store selling guitars to teenagers and giving lessons for $20 an hour. His dreams of rock stardom had faded along with his reputation. The last I heard, he was working 2 jobs and still couldn't make ends meet. Lisa Williams had been cleared by the nursing board, but the stress had destroyed her marriage. She'd moved back in with her parents and was seeing a therapist twice a week. I'd destroyed them all, systematically and completely. Their careers, their relationships, their futures, all of it lay in ruins because they'd thought they could betray me without consequences. The best part was that I'd done it all legally. No violence, no threats, no criminal activity, just the truth, strategically deployed at the right moments to maximum effect. I was having a beer at Amelia's gym one evening when she asked me if I felt better. Better about what? About getting your revenge, about destroying their lives. I thought about it for a moment. You know what, Amelia? I feel great. For the first time in months, I feel like myself again. No regrets? None. What about the baby? He's innocent in all this. The baby has a father, a real father who wanted him enough to destroy his family for him. Evan can figure out how to take care of his own son. Amelia nodded slowly. You're a cold man, Adam Thompson. No, I said, finishing my beer. I'm a man who learned that sometimes the only way to win is to make sure everyone else loses. 6 months after the baby was born, I ran into Rachel at the grocery store. She looked tired and older, pushing a cart with a crying infant while trying to manage a list of generic brand items. When she saw me, she froze. Adam, she said. Rachel. We stood there in the cereal aisle, two people who'd once promised to love each other forever, now strangers sharing an awkward moment between the Cheerios and the cornflakes. How are you? She asked. Good. Really good. You? She looked down at the baby, who'd stopped crying and was staring up at me with dark eyes that looked nothing like mine. We're managing. Good to hear. Adam, I wanted to apologize for everything. I know what I did was wrong, and I know you'll probably never forgive me, but I needed to say it. I looked at her standing there with another man's child, asking for forgiveness she didn't deserve, and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, no regret, just a cold, empty satisfaction. Apology accepted, I said. Take care of yourself, Rachel. As I walked away, I heard her call my name one last time, but I didn't turn around. I had nothing left to say to her, nothing left to give her, nothing left to take away. I'd gotten my revenge, and it was everything I'd hoped it would be.